Welcome back to our Terraform series. In this video, we will explore another essential feature of Terraform, output values. Outputs are incredibly useful for sharing important information about your infrastructure after running Terraform. For example, they can provide connection details, resource IDs, or any other key information you want to expose after deployment. So, what are outputs in Terraform? First, let's understand what outputs are. Outputs allow us to extract information from our Terraform configuration and display it in the terminal or pass it to other Terraform modules. Outputs can be useful for debugging as references for other tools or even as input to scripts. Now let's see how to define an output in Terraform. For that, let's head over to our Visual Studio screen. I'm going to clear my screen. Now let's see how to define an output in Terraform. Here is the code snippet I bring from. Now you can see we are using output component with instance ID block. Output is the block used to define the output. Instance ID is the name of the output. You can name it anything that makes sense for your infrastructure. Value is the expression that fetches the desired attribute, in this case, ID of an EC2 instance. Description is optional but recommended as it helps explain the purpose of the output. Let's bring it all together with a complete Terraform configuration. Here's an example where we can create an EC2 instance, and define multiple outputs to display the key information. So as we have already defined our EC2 instance resource, we will define multiple outputs to get the key information of our EC2 instance. So I will bring some more code here. So I'm going to create three output components with one instance ID, instance public ID, and instance ARN. And in this case, you can see in the value at argument, we are passing AWS instance that is here, dot example, the name of our resource, and then its ID attribute. Same goes to in the second output, we are going to reference to our AWS instance and the instance name, resource name, and then its public IP attribute. And the third one is AWS instance, its name and its attribute ARN. After applying this configuration, Terraform will display the output values in the terminal. Let's run the commands and see how it works. So now I will apply the changes. You can see the changes here, and also once I will acknowledge yes that I want to create this instance. So you can see 1 to add, 0 to change, and 0 to destroy. So what is going to be added? Our EC2 instance that is here. Example EC2 instance that we have defined here. And now you can see at the bottom of the screen in the terminal, instance ARN is this that we have defined here. Instance ID is this. Instance ID is this, and instance public IP is this. That is our instance public IP we have defined here. And if we go to our console, you can see the public IP is this that we have got in our terminal. And the instance ID is this. This is the instance ID, and the ARN is this is the ARN. So it confirms that the values that our EC2 instance has, we get in the terminal output. This shows how the values we defined in our output block. So let's take a scenario where we have a Terraform configuration that creates a VPC and outputs its ID. We want to use this VPC ID in another configuration that creates subnet. Let's take a scenario where we want Terraform configuration that creates a VPC and outputs its ID, and you want to use this VPC ID in another configuration that creates a subnet. So let's create a VPC folder here and one subnet folder here, and inside VPC folder we will create main.tf file, and in the subnet folder we will create main.tf file again, because we want to make them separate from each other. We want to make these two separate configurations, and what I will do is I will pass the provider for both configurations will that it will be same as I want to do in the AWS resource. I want to do this in AWS, and then I will create a VPC in this configuration. Resource will be VPC, and the output will fetch the ID for our VPC, newly created VPC. So AWS dot example dot ID attribute. So if I want to make this change, I need to change my folder to VPC, and then I will do Terraform in it. With that, Terraform will start initializing this project where it will fetch the provider of AWS. So with that, we will be able to create resources on AWS account. As it's taking time, I will open a new terminal and I will change my folder to subnet because I want to do the same thing in this configuration. So I will do Terraform init. So both of my configuration will be initialized. Now you can see our VPC configuration is initialized. I will do Terraform apply and now we will be able to create a VPC on our AWS account, and I will acknowledge yes. Now the Terraform is creating a VPC for us, and you can see one resource has been added, and in the output we got VPC ID. And now what we will do is we will reference this output in our other resource, but this one is still in initialized stage. So I will pause the video and I will come back once the initialization is complete. So the our initialization is complete, and now I will go inside the subnet folder main file, and I will create subnet here, subnet resource, and for the subnet VPC ID, I will fetch the output block from the first configuration. So for that, I will create a data block, and inside the data block, I will use Terraform remote state block, and then I will in the configuration argument, I will pass the path of our VPC, and then inside the VPC Terraform.tf state file. So as both of the folders are on the same path, I will do //VPC. I'll change my directory to previous directory, and then I will go inside the VPC directory. And inside the VPC directory, I have a Terraform.tf state file as it has that output value. So if I come here and I try to search this output value inside the VPC folder and Terraform TF state file, you will see the VPC ID in the output component is here. So I will use this output inside my subnet main file. So for that, I have defined data block with Terraform remote state, and then I will reference that state file, and then I will in the resource block of my subnet, I will pass the VPC argument with reference to that path. So I will change my folder. Sorry, I will apply Terraform apply, and you will see our subnet will be able to get the VPC ID of that new subnet that we have created over there. If I copy this and I go to previous tab and I search this, you can see this is the VPC that we have created in our previous configuration. So I will do Terraform pass acknowledge yes, and now we have got one subnet with this ID. And if I go to AWS, I will search for VPC service. Inside the VPC service, we got one subnet here. That is which one was this? So 615, this is our VPC. And inside this VPC, we have a subnet that we have created here. This is the subnet that we have created. So the outputs in Terraform are essential tools for making your infrastructure information accessible and easy to use. Be sure to add meaningful outputs to your configurations to make them more informative and dynamic. In our next video, we will learn what are local component in Terraform. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more Terraform tutorials. See you in the next one.